Good afternoon. Thank you for joining us today in our first work session as a new administration. We are going to start out today with a proclamation for Small Business Saturday. Small Business Saturday, whereas the City of Hagerstown believes that small businesses are the backbone of our local economy, generating jobs and improving the quality of life for citizens. And whereas the City of Hagerstown supports the effort of local businesses and recognizes the critical role they play in our community to create jobs, boost our local economy, and preserve our neighborhoods. And whereas Small Business Saturday is a nationwide campaign that was created on September 27, 2010, by the credit card giant American Express. Small Business Saturday is a way to cultivate business for merchants of small businesses on the Saturday following Thanksgiving. And whereas Small Business Saturday will stimulate economic growth locally for merchants by following the tradition of Black Friday and Cyber Monday, two of the busiest shopping days of the year. And whereas residents of Hagerstown and Washington County are encouraged to shop local and support the wonderful small businesses that our community has to offer. Now, therefore, with the support of the City Council, I, Emily Keller, Mayor of the City of Hagerstown, do hereby recognize Saturday, November 28, 2020 as Small Business Saturday, and encourage residents to recognize and support small businesses in the community by shopping at these establishments on the Saturday following Thanksgiving. Thank you very much for all you do for the small businesses. They are absolutely the backbone of our community. They really are. You want to say a couple words?
I do have just a few words. I won't ramble. Thank you. Yes, there we go.
I got it. So one, thank you, Ms. Mayor. I'm very excited to work with our very new administration for the next 4 or so years and all of the projects that we do, and as we continue to, as a group, support our small businesses. And Small Business Saturday this year is different, and it's different for a reason, and we will adapt to that. The pandemic has and continues to affect all of us in one way or another. Our businesses are not exempt. So this Saturday, the Small Business Saturday of 2020, we encourage everyone to participate in Small Business Saturday as they are able in a variety of different ways. Whether that is picking up and putting on a mask, sanitizing and staying 6 feet apart, placing an order online for pickup and going to one of our 25 different curbside parking spots designated downtown and picking up your order that way, or staying home and utilizing our commerce sites of our small businesses downtown. We have 3 different options for you. Go visit them, shop online, call in, pick it up via the sidewalk and our parking spots. There are many different ways you can support them safely this year. Small businesses themselves can get personalized promotional material online at americanexpress.com/smallbusiness. I also have a link on Facebook that I am willing to direct anybody to. Just send me an email. I can help you out with that, as well as emailing me. You can let me know how many Shop Small Business bags you would like. Any other small promotional materials, I'd be happy to bring them by to you. And thank you to our small businesses, and thank them for all of their support they do for our community. And again, thank you.
All right, next up, we have to have a conversation to establish the meeting dates and times. Attached, you guys have a draft schedule for 2021. Right now, the only change we're going to make is January 5th, we're not going to have a work session. Is everyone okay with the meeting schedule as proposed?
Yep.
Fine by me.
All right, that was easy, painless. Next, we have boards and commissions, so the council representation on each board. So I guess we'll start out, is there any boards or commissions that you really like want to serve on? We'll get those out of the way.
I would like to be on the board of traffic
Okay.
and
Traffic and parking.
economic development commission.
Are you guys okay with Bob being on Board of Traffic and Parking and Economic Development Commission?
Yes.
Okay. Kristen?
I'm currently on the Hagerstown Housing Authority. I would be happy to continue serving on that board. If there is another individual that would like to, I would certainly welcome discussion on deferring. I do have an interest in also serving on the Economic Development Commission. I'm not sure if they still meet, though, at that same time in the morning. So it would depend on when they meet. And then I was not aware, and I apologize, but I was not aware we had a USMH advisory board. I'm not certain what the capacity of that board is. But
Usually
if,
the mayor sits on
okay.
Did you say the mayor sits on that?
Which one? Yes. Yeah, the mayor. Yes, it's in their bylaws as the mayor.
Can you tell us which ones, if there's any more, that the mayor is specifically the individual, so we can kind of eliminate those out of the gate?
The Hagerstown Eastern Panhandle Metropolitan Planning Organization has a spot for a mayor, but that's always, the mayor's deferred to an alternate, which has been Jim Bender. That can change if you want. And then there's been one other council representative.
Okay. Tiara?
Well, for me, it depends on what time the boards are. Does anyone know what time the diversity board is?
The Diversity Board meets at 6 PM on Mondays. It's the third Monday of the month, I believe. It may be the second, don't quote me.
Okay.
And trying to think of, the only other one I know is Community Rescue Service. They meet at 5:30 on the third Wednesday of each month.
So I'm interested in both Community Rescue Service and the Diversity Inclusion Committee.
Okay. Are you guys okay with that?
Yes.
Mayor, which one?
Tiara would like the Community Rescue Service and the Washington County Diversity and Inclusion Committee.
I'll be happy to stay on the planning commission.
Sure you don't want to be BZA?
They are so, no, I'm good with staying on the planning commission. They would really miss me, I think.
All right, so Shelley's on the Planning Commission. So we still have HNDP, the Police and Fire Retirement Committee, Bicycle Advisory Committee. Any of those sound?
The Washington County Economic Development, is that one? There's two representatives.
I think
Yes.
Bob and Kristen are gonna do that one.
Okay.
Is that right?
Dependent on the time, right?
Again, I'm happy to defer. If anybody has like a significant interest in any specific one,
Okay.
I'm happy to just
There
stay
you
on
go.
the housing authority.
Yeah, usually the EDC meets like at 7:30 in the morning.
Yeah, never mind.
But they haven't, to my knowledge, they haven't met recently because of
been-
COVID. So,
Yeah.
Yeah, it's been months.
yeah.
Yeah, I haven't heard about a meeting that they've
I'm
had
trying to
in a
think.
while.
Is
Do
Jill
you-
here? Jill, what day was that usually on? Wasn't it on a Wednesday morning, like the?
Yeah, and they adjusted from a commission to a coalition.
Right.
Now a little less formal, and at Thursdays at noon once a month.
Oh, Thursdays at noon once a
Yeah.
month.
I'm
Well,
out.
take me off that thing. I don't want on that.
All right, Takesha, would you like it Thursdays at noon? Would that be okay?
you-
It's
Sure,
once
and-
once a month.
And Hagerstown Housing Authority too, Kristen, I know you said you were on that one, but I would be interested, in the housing. And then I'll do the bicycle advisory committee.
Okay.
I haven't rode a bike in a while.
I'll do the police and fire retirement.
Okay. So we have HNDP, which is the Hagerstown Home Store and Neighborhood Development.
Yep, I'll do that one.
Okay. So we have Bicycle Advisory Committee, Takesha, Board of Traffic and Parking, Bob, Community Rescue Service, Tierra, Hagerstown Housing Authority, Kristen, HNDP, Takesha, Hagerstown Planning Commission, Shelley, Police and Fire Retirement, Bob, USMH, me, Diversity and Inclusion, Tierra, and Economic Development, Takesha.
I will, do you know which Thursday that is? Okay. I mean, I can try to be the second member, or we can alternate. If one can't make it, the other one
Okay,
can. I can probably work it that way.
that sounds good.
I can be the alternate.
Okay.
If Kristen can't make it.
Second Thursday of the month.
Okay. Good to go? All right, next up we have rules of procedure discussion. So we have that attached here, our current rules and procedures. So I'm okay with keeping them as is. I don't know if there's any changes that you guys wanted to make.
So, I don't have any changes specific to our rules of procedure, except to ask the question that, given the current state of affairs, do we have any metrics at which point we would consider returning to a virtual meeting format?
Not at this point. The building is closed to the public, so we would restrict the public from coming in here. We are prepared to go virtual if that would be the will of the body to go back virtual. But we are distanced in here as it is. And I think we'd be okay, but we are prepared to go virtual if you all would want to go back and do go-to meetings.
That's what a lot of places have like a number, you know, if the you know, if the current climate gets to X, you know, then protocol Y kicks in, and I don't know.
No, we don't have that for meetings specifically, no.
Okay.
Any other thoughts?
Yeah, I'm good with it.
I'm good with this.
I'm good.
Okay. Next up, budget discussion. Michelle.
Good afternoon and welcome to everybody on this new administration. As you can see, obviously, I'm the lone director who's on Scott's naughty list because it seems like the heavy lifting for the first meeting. No, actually, I'm just teasing. But in all honesty, because it is the first meeting, I just wanted to cover a few basics. One is that I am hopeful that anybody that's on this administration, was on the prior administration, has retained and kept their fiscal year 21 budget book document. I have provided 2 new ones, of course, and hopefully, once the new members have an opportunity to look through that document or as they have questions, please feel free to reach out. The other thing that should be in everybody's mailboxes, because October 31 is the deadline through the Department of Legislative Services for our comprehensive annual financial report and audit. So in your mailboxes, you should have all had access to a bound copy of our fiscal year 20 CAFR. Because it was due on October 30th, we did meet that deadline. An electronic version is also out on our website and has been there since the end of October. And talking about the annual comprehensive financial report and the audit, in the beginning of December, our audit firm, SB and Company, we will be joined by Chris Lehman to actually go through and walk through the audit results. We received a clean audit, yay. And also just a high-level overview of what our fiscal year 20 results were. Again, I don't want to go in details because it's a little unfair to do that tonight when nobody really had access to that document. So what I can say is this. I've been coming back, our fiscal year 21 budget, we approved it, of course, before COVID. We have talked about this $1.6 million deficit that we are projecting in the general fund. That number is still literally the current number. We continued to make changes, but it seems like we're changing one thing up, one thing down, so it's staying fairly flat. So in the next couple weeks, hopefully, I will be coming back to say, here's the recommendations on big areas that I wish to see us do to cover that deficit, because it's the end of November. December 1st is next week, which means all of our directors and leaders across the city are anxiously waiting to start their fiscal year 22 budget preparations. So it's just a little unusual that we'll be still doing so many conversations on our current fiscal year budget discussions and making adjustments, but literally that's what we'll be doing. I'll be coming back to do that. Get the blessing on the adjustments and move forward. We did have a brief conversation, both Scott and I, today with SDAT, our local State Department of Assessment and Taxations. We do this once a year to get a feel for what they are seeing, looking at where we're currently at for assessed values, any big changes on their radar. Because we are in year 2 of our triennial assessment period, the good thing for us is that we didn't get reassessed. And that if there had been no other changes and COVID had not occurred, we would be expecting, according to the reports, about a little over a 2% growth from our last July 2020 billing to July 2021. That is still the case. However, what has changed is the large dollar and values in real estate tax appeals. And we are anticipating, actually SDAT's also anticipating that those are going to continue. We're going to continue to see them mostly in the big chains, big strip mall areas, shopping centers, hotels and motels, restaurants. So as they continue to come in, our initial file may be overall good news. However, the appeals and such are going to be enough that we're still looking at an overall decrease, at least preliminarily at this time. One of the other reasons that will probably decrease is that a lot of the current appeals have been pushed back and back as everything got delayed for COVID, so did some of the tax appeal process. So some of the tax appeals, there's 1 or 2 out there for 2019, I think, which surprised both of us, but there's still a large number of 2020 appeals that have not yet been heard and are pending. So more to come on that as we get the information. And I think just overall, as Scott has mentioned, right now, the doors to City Hall are currently locked. Our lobby is closed, but we are still taking payments. People can still make payments over the phone. They can still make payments online. We're still able to process and continue to do all the things that we were doing. It's just that right now the lobby is closed. We're anticipating, the goal was that all of the staff would be back and on site by Monday, November the 30th. But more than likely at this time, unless something drastically changes and the world is a better place after Thanksgiving, the doors to the public will probably remain closed for a while, just because of the large volume and spike in cases and the surge currently happening. One final reminder was just that, throughout the whole COVID process, when the governor had orders in place, he had two specific separate orders. One dealt with evictions, and one specifically dealt with utility terminations and service cutoffs. The service terminations and cutoffs had expired back in September. Then the PSC, the Public Services Commission, put additional restrictions in place, which basically impacted the city of Hagerstown electric accounts only. That was in place through November 15th. So again, we continue to see payments come in, trickle in. The majority of our tax receipts, because we're towards the end of November, from the billing that happened in July are here, meaning greater than 50%. And I think that's about it, other than, we really truly don't know what impact the second surge is going to have, or if and when any local or other governmental agencies will receive any type of additional monies to help compensate for revenue losses or other things. And I did fail to mention, one of the things that we were able to do was that from the months of March through the end of September, so mid-March through September 30th, we were able to apply through the county to receive CARES reimbursement, specifically for PP&E and some other very specific and regimented COVID expenditures that we had. We just received that check today across the city in all funds. It amounted to $101,000. 84,000 of that is in the general fund. So that's really good news. It's reimbursement that, we otherwise might not have had if we would have had to wait or attempt to go through FEMA. So that was direct dollar for dollar spend. And again, we received that check today. Anything I'm missing, Scott? Did you want it covered, just big picture? Unless there's specific questions, then by all means, yes. But again, it's a little unfair to cover the numbers when you didn't have the documents yet.
Michelle, I won't ask a specific question. Thanks for going over that. I'm hoping that we can run another PSA for utility payment arrangements, maybe on all the social media, Facebook pages that we have. I know that PCAD does a very good job, and Parks and Rec and Economic Development. Just another push, and maybe on the television station. I think consistency is important with that message. One time, a couple times isn't enough. So if we can kind of ramp that back up again and really get it on all of our social media pages, since the audiences vary, I think that might be, it's definitely not going to solve it, but I think that it will reach more of our audience. So just a suggestion.
Also, regarding payments and downstairs being closed, you said they can make a payment by phone?
Yes, we've been very fortunate. We've had staff in the utilities department that has been able to help assist do that for the last couple of days.
Okay.
It's just that they can't necessarily process it the whole way through. So they can take your information and everything is good to go, but you might not, like if you're calling to make arrangements specifically on a credit card, instead of sending a check or dropping a check in a drop box downstairs, it's going to take longer than 48 hours for you to see that go through your account. But yes, and we are still encouraging. So, but again, online has been working and there's no issues with that either.
Okay. I think maybe I misread something, because I thought what we put out earlier today said no pay by phone. Isn't it? Did you guys get tagged in that?
And
I feel like I read that too.
is that what it said?
Yeah.
We'll have to
Only
correct that.
online payments.
Okay.
Good to know.
And we have been doing that since Friday afternoon of last week when that happened, so.
All right. Thank you. Any questions for Michelle?
Thanks, Michelle.
And of course I say that pay by phone, but of course the Thursday and Friday are a city holiday, and our pay by phone is actually people answering the phone. So nobody's, with the holiday on Thursday and Friday, that would not have occurred anyway. But yes, it's the rest of the day tomorrow.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, next up, strategic planning discussion. So I just wanted to plan our day-long strategy session. We come up with a vision statement, a mission statement, and hear from the department heads and kind of come together and figure out the goals of the next 4 years and beyond. So Scott and I spoke earlier about looking at the week of December 14th. I don't know if you guys have access to your calendars right now, or if there's any particular day of the week that works better for you guys.
Tuesday.
Tuesday?
I would have to call in virtually.
Oh,
I'll be unable to be in person.
okay. Okay. Well, do you want to schedule it a different time then?
Well, I don't want to be the reason why it doesn't get scheduled. I'm traveling, so I'll have to, yeah.
When you say we're gonna meet, you're saying we'll meet on like December, do you say December 14th?
The week of, somewhere in that week.
For,
Like the 15th.
like, for our goal setting? Okay. I guess for me, I'm looking at this sheet, the community survey overview. Would we have information from that back
No.
by then, or we're gonna meet and have that discussion? And then this will go out?
Yeah.
Okay. So we'll sort of establish through that discussion, like what's gonna go out?
No, we're going to do that tonight, hopefully.
Okay.
So, I mean, I guess originally my thought was we could get together sooner than later to discuss kind of what our big picture goals are. And then after we receive the community feedback survey, we can sit down, look over that, and make sure that our goals, maybe even have another strategic planning site based on the results of the survey. Just wanted to get something sooner than later of like a mission statement and high level what we want to focus on. If you
Yeah, I
guys
mean-
want to do it differently, that's fine.
Yeah, I mean, I'm flexible, to meet whenever. I don't know that I'll have a lot to offer, but I hear what you're saying. I just don't know that I'll have a lot to offer to the table, so to speak, that I won't want to sort of hear, that community input.
Okay, so do you want to wait till
On.
January?
Well, the difficulty for me is I don't want to like, you know what I mean? Like, I feel like I have these individual things, and I'm like, okay, I like to do this, I like to do this. And I don't want to get back and then, get, a survey back and those like be, you know what I mean? Like, not even things that are on the radar.
Can I offer a suggestion? That we, maybe as council members, through the month of December, and while we're waiting on the community survey overview to come back, that we reach out to your office and you with what like our individual large goals are. And so that way, when we do meet, that we can have the appropriate staff, have them have a heads up beforehand of what we might be talking about. Maybe they can offer some information that they may already have. So that'll be already put together before we even meet on our strategic planning goals.
Okay.
I mean, for me, I'd rather share that with the public. That, like, for me, I'd rather, if that's what we're gonna do, and if that's the step we're gonna take, I'd rather just do that in a very public fashion. That's just my 2 cents.
Well, we should, and what we share and what information is gathered until we meet on the community survey overview is, that'll all be presented at the same time. I mean, it's not like we're doing it in secret or anything.
Well, and I think if we waited for the survey to come back and we all met together, whether we talk about our goals individually with your office or whatever, it's not gonna take us but an hour to go over the community survey results or so, and then we can easily put together based on what our individual goals are that we discussed with you privately or publicly or whatever, and then this, rather than I think that we're putting the cart before the horse by discussing our goals, then going back to the community and then talking about it again.
Okay,
That's all.
so why don't we put it off until after the new year?
Yeah. And just make a hard push to make sure that they can complete this.
Yeah,
I agree.
all right,
Then we'll have that information already.
Yeah.
sounds good.
So make that like the 2nd of January. Do we have we have a meeting then, right?
Well, we just canceled the 5th.
Well, we gotta figure out when the survey results come
Right.
back.
Right,
things like
right,
that.
yeah,
So
that's true, yeah, yep,
All right.
yep, yep.
we'll come back to that. So now, we have the community survey overview. So I drew up like a little memo, but I met with Chief Kuiper and Captain Alexander about community survey. In order for it to be effective and ensure a legitimate sample, we were gonna do a targeted survey. The goal was to have at least 400 responses, and then after the targeted survey responses come back, then we're gonna open it up online to anyone who would like to take it. So that way, every voice has an opportunity to be heard, but we wanna make sure that we're getting all areas of the community, and there's not maybe like one side of town responding more than the other. So we're gonna do it very strategically, that way we're ensuring impact from all parts of the community. Are you guys okay with that?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. So we need to look at what demographic questions that we want to ask. I just put some examples on there that we had discussed. And then what do you want to learn from the survey, and what types of questions would you like to ask? So I just included some samples that I had looked at from other community surveys, and wanted to get you guys input, on what you'd like to see.
One of the items, and this is just, again, just me, when I look at the demographic questions, one of the things that's important to me is the household structure. So I think for me, I'd be more interested in knowing what the household size and structure is than I would like somebody's individual age, because I think that speaks to, the services and amenities and things that we provide, especially as it relates to those more specific targeted areas that you're trying to reach. And for clarity, are we sending out 1,200 total surveys, or are we sending out 1,200 to each end of town?
No, the way it would work is we would look at the 4 areas of the city, and we would determine how many people live in each one of those areas. And then percentage-wise, we would put out the survey proportionately to those areas, so you get a good representation. So if you have more people living in the west end, you do the east end, then more samples would go to the west end than to the east end to even it out. So from a random sampling purpose, it would go in that direction. By comparison, a good result of any survey is around 80%, which generally doesn't happen. So for a city our size, the sample that you want to get back in return is a minimum of 400. So we looked at 1,200 as a sample size to put out for the whole city in hopes of getting back at least 50%. So that would put us over that 400 response reply that you're looking for to get a valid random sampling back in a survey, which validates the survey when you get that 400 back.
And I would imagine there'll be self-addressed stamped envelopes?
Yes, we had talked, I know Mayor Keller was looking to do this online. This was an easier way for people that either don't have the ability to get online and do that. We would put them out through the mail with a self-addressed envelope to respond back. Each survey would have a coded number to it, so we know there's basically 1 through 1,200 surveys. We know we're getting back that survey. It hasn't been copied twice. It hasn't been made up. Someone's not responding in mail and then online, doing it twice. So we've been talking to her about potentially being able to still do it online. with that coded number, but I think the easiest way that we looked at from a valid standpoint is to keep it simple by just putting it out as a mailer with a return address envelope that they can put it in, send it right back.
And in regard to the demographic questions, if we're going to add it online, I would like to see if the question, do you live in the city? Because anyone will be able to fill it out, I would imagine.
That was the other
So if we
fear of
can-
doing a survey randomly, doing it out online, is that you could have someone troll from Oregon take the survey, or just somebody that lives in Frederick.
Right.
That may have family living here, decide they want to answer that survey. So we were really trying to identify at her direction what she was looking for. How do we get the best representation from the community at large, so that we know that we're getting responses from all four corners of our city, and not people that live in the county and people that don't have any say here. And we're not going to be hitting businesses, we're going to be hitting households. So I hear what you're saying about the makeup of the household. That's a good opportunity. Captain Alexander could not be here tonight, so I'm speaking on his behalf on this. He's the expert in this field. But one of those demographics you're looking for is you're looking for the age of the respondent that's responding, because you may have, from an academic standpoint, you want to know what are your responses you're getting back. So someone in their 20s may be answering something different than someone in their 50s. So it may not be anything that's a variable, but you want to look at those things when we try to get that report back to you guys as to what this is looking like in terms of these responses.
Did we pick 1,200 because of a cost associated figure?
No, we were just looking at, from Captain Alexander's experience with surveys, from his academic knowledge of all this, that this is what he teaches. This is his PhD level, is in this kind of stuff. 1,200 would be a good number, because you're looking for at least a 50% return. That gets us over that 400 mark, which is what you really want from a validated standpoint. You need 400 responses back on a survey of a city of our size. So 1,200 puts us above that, with an expectation of doing it this way, of getting well above that 400 mark.
I mean, I hear that number, and I have to equate it to, there's roughly 20,000 households in the city of Hagerstown. If you send out 1,200 surveys, that's roughly, what, 7-8%? Not even that. If you get 400 responses back, you're reaching 2% of the city households. That just seems like 2% seems like low. That's why I asked the question, do you send out 1,200? Because to me, if you send out 1,200 in each direction, that to me seems like a more measurable sampling size, of those areas than 2% of the total.
Obviously, we can go bigger, but again,
I want to know, whether there was a cost associated to keeping us at that number.
From our perspective, there was no cost associated to the thought process. From the captain's experience, and from, like I said, from his knowledge of this in terms of what he teaches, and this is the side of statistics and things he teaches at his PhD level when it comes to surveys. He's looking at that academic side of the survey size. So to get that 400 is the randomness of a survey to get you at least the ideas that's coming from the different parts of the community. Obviously, the more people you take in, the more varied it's going to get. But it's really just that randomness is what you're looking for, to get at least a snapshot of what this community is looking for.
I mean, we can definitely send out more. The point was kind of, once they come back, the targeted ones come back, then we open the online up to everyone. But that opens the opportunity for someone from Frederick to fill it out, from,
So-
wherever to fill it out.
I don't know if this is possible. It's just a thought in my head that popped in at the moment. What if you linked it to water and sewer account? In other words, let's say you go and you say, I'm John Smith, I want to take this survey, and John Smith, you have to enter your water and sewer account before you can go and take the survey. In other words, we could limit it then to those account holders. I don't know if surveys allow you to work it that way, but then you could limit it if you don't get to pass go, so to speak, unless you have that number, and then you get to pass go and take the survey.
Surveys do work like that, and it's simplified to that, as it would say in a survey, especially online surveys, if you answer, do you live or do you work at a certain place, depending on the survey, and you say no, it does not allow you to go any further in the survey. So you would have to be able to answer those questions to be able to move forward with the survey.
But anybody could say yes, or anybody could come up with a street name to circumvent that. It's gonna be pretty hard for somebody to get my water and sewer account number. And for a person that lives within a community that truly wants to engage in that survey process, and that bill may go to their landlord, they're going to make the effort to contact the landlord and say, hey, I need the account number for the water and sewer utility account for the residents, because I need to, I need to take this survey. It's just an idea.
Because on the water account, it would go to the landowner, on the electric side, it would go to.
Right. I was just seeing if that was an avenue that you could explore to aid in making sure we're hearing, from Hagerstown, at least the greater Hagerstown area residents.
That's definitely possible to do that, yes.
I just want to make it easy for people to do, because we all know if there's a bunch of steps they have to go through, they're not going to do it. That's also, I think, a concern.
And the other idea behind this, by doing the randomness of what we're trying to do, is that we're making sure that we're allowing every part of our community to be evenly represented in that response. And when you open it up just overall to a whole community, that response you may get back is heavily biased or weighted to one part of the community over another part of the community. So the overall picture may change, because you may have people from this end of town respond way more than people from this end of town in that. So by doing this randomness of selecting a specific amount to go proportionately to those communities, gives you a better picture of what the communities look like, what each corner of our community looks like in terms of.
Oh, yeah, I agree with that. I just don't think 2% is a large enough metric, to get there.
Yeah, I suggest that maybe we send out 2,000, which is like 10% of the amount of households. And then if we get back 40% of that, you're gonna get back 800. If you don't, and if you only get back 2%, you're gonna get back at least 400. So
We can, from this body, you guys can decide the minimum number we looked at was getting 400 response back. From an academic standpoint, that's what you would want at a minimum. Obviously, the more responses back you get, the better your results are. The more information, more data is better. But if you want to go heavier on that, that would be up to this body to decide in terms of that number. That was a starting point from an academic standpoint of where we need to be to get that results where you guys were looking for. So yeah, we can decide that number. You guys can decide what that number could be, but we're open to that. That's not going to change much on our end. Getting the information, we're going to be getting it from the utility side anyway. That's how these are going to go out randomly. That's where it's going to go to those households, but we can do that.
Thoughts? Anyone?
Well, before we issue this out, we should do our best with making it very public and reminding folks that this is coming, and so they won't discard the survey. So we should use our social media pages to promote this, let everyone aware.
Yeah, definitely a huge awareness campaign. So let's go back to demographic questions and then specific questions that you guys are interested in. Kristen, when you said household structure, what type of answers are you looking for?
Maybe just something as simple as household size.
Okay.
Because I think that at least gives us an understanding of, the average household size for the ones we're getting responses on.
Okay.
Talk about family structure, how many people are in the family or how many people live in the household?
How many people in the household? I think that's a good enough metric.
How about education, from each person in the household, like the highest level completed by the adults, but also if you're looking for household size, how about what ages and grades the kids are in?
Okay. Education. All right, are we good on demographics? Is there anything else I think we should add?
I think that'll give us what we're looking for.
Okay. And then as far as questions, what do you want to learn from the survey? These are, like I said, these are some samples. I think we need to be very specific, because if you ask very general questions, we're going to get a lot of answers, so I think we need to be as specific as possible.
I think that, I mean, I have a couple comments on these. I would suggest for the locally owned restaurant or business to define what that is. I don't know if people think that Bob Evans is a locally owned business. Like maybe, you know, in the city of Hagerstown, however you want to word that, to make it more specific to what we're looking for.
Okay.
Whenever, skip down to the large-scale project, this is just my preference, is to remove the word baseball for the multi-use stadium. I would maybe use whatever we've been talking about, multi-purpose, multi-use event center, something along that line, unless we really want to use the word baseball.
Or maybe just multi-use facility.
Multi-use facility.
Yeah.
Well, I think that's a little general as well, because an indoor sports complex or a sports complex could be a multi-use center too.
I mean, I think the difficulty for me is when I read that question, I have to think of those things that we have an ability to affect in the community. And for me, the three things that government can affect are these: services, amenities, and infrastructure. I mean, those are the three things as a business, as a government, that we provide. And so when I look at that, for me, the first thing I would do is collate the questions under those three sort of areas, because I think that they are three distinctly different areas that have three distinctly different sets of questions to them. And I don't know that, you know, in services, I think that we can you know, indicate some question associated with economic development. I just lose it a little in terms of when we ask folks, you know, how often do you patronize a locally owned restaurant or business? Like that, to me, I don't know. That seems way more specific than, you know, asking a question related to economic development. You know, what efforts would you like to see the city take to improve, you know, economic development within the city? You know, retail, you know, downtown investment, you know, major employer, et cetera. I guess those are like the sort of the level that I feel the city can effectuate. Just like amenities, I think it's difficult. Like for me, if I was asking the citizen, I wouldn't ask the citizen, what large-scale project would you like to have in Hagerstown, and then list the ones that are sort of in our minds. Like to me, I would say, are there any large-scale projects you would like to you know, to see in Hagerstown, and even change that word project to, are there any large-scale event venues, or something that allows the person to say to us, they may say they want a skating rink or an Olympic swimming pool, or, like, if we list them, you know, I mean, I almost feel like they should be, you know, more along the lines of, you know, which of these would you like to see in the community, not, I just feel like we're
Direct,
I just feel
yeah.
like in these several questions, these first 5 or 6 questions, when we give the examples, we're baiting that person to pick those things that we want. Whereas if you go to the one question where it says, what initiative or service would you like to see Hagerstown implement? Like, I feel like if you could flesh that question into one of those 3 areas, you know, are there any infrastructure deficiencies that exist within the community at this time? Like, that to me feels like a question where it gives that citizen the ability to say, you know, yeah, your sidewalks are horrible, or you know, this intersection is terrible, or you know, being able to give that feedback, especially if we're going to do it in a manner that we want to hear from different areas, then I think we're going to hear from those different areas from people that see things much differently than we do every day because we don't live there. And then they'll be able to flesh out the sort of bigger ones themselves. And I say that I would break it into these 3 areas because when I read the one that says, what do you see as Hagerstown's biggest issue? And when you read the examples we give, each of those fall under sort of different categories. You know, one's a service issue, one's an infrastructure issue, one's an amenity issue. I'd really like for us to assist the citizens in sort of breaking out those pieces of government that we that we do, and see which of those we're doing good. I think as you explained at the orientation, which ones we're doing good, and which ones we need to improve on, and which ones we're missing, hearing that message about that we didn't think about in the first place. Like, that's how, when you explained it, that's kind of how I heard it. So that's, and then I think we could come up with, 6 or 7 questions in sort of each of those 3 areas that we, as a government, effectuate the large-scale change on, to let them say it rather than us say it.
I think I understand why you were doing this, why you did it this way, though, because when people fill out surveys, no one likes to fill out a survey, so you're making it as easy as possible, and
Yes.
also getting the information that we need without putting words in our community's mouth. So
Well,
I think
and
there's a nice hybrid between what you've done, which is great, and what Kristen's suggesting, which also makes complete sense.
Yeah, and I based these off of a survey that was done in South Carolina, and they did something very similar, but every question also had other. So you can write in other responses as well.
Yeah.
So I was just basing it off of, why reinvent the wheel if it worked?
No, yeah, I mean,
There.
I like the idea of giving examples, since, it's hard to, sometimes it's hard to fill these out, and it's hard to think about those things and what we can do and can't do, so.
I mean, I think providing examples is important. I think if you ask most people, I know if you would have asked me 6 years ago where I thought our infrastructure was failing, I would have had absolutely no clue how to answer that question.
I probably would have thrown the survey, I'd be like, what? This makes no sense. I was gonna complain to my friends. If we are going to list these large-scale projects, I would like to recommend adding the splash pad. You're welcome.
Yeah, I just,
Well, yeah.
What about what?
I would just like to see how they're
Huh?
listed. Like, you know what I mean? I'm sure the survey's gonna look different than the memo, you know what I mean?
Oh, sure, yeah.
So I think for me, I'd be interested to see how they're, listed.
I also think, so the first question and the very last question are kind of identical. How often do you shop or eat? How often do you patronize? So they're kind of one and the same,
Yeah.
I would
Well,
imagine.
Okay.
And
Like-
Well, I didn't, so my thought process there, they are pretty much the same question, but one specified downtown.
Ah,
And I didn't want the whole entire survey to just be about
Sure.
going downtown too, so, I mean, we can pick one, or just take out the downtown one.
or maybe you could say, how often do you shop or eat at a locally owned restaurant or business? Which is the combination of the two.
Yeah.
And then the last thing that I wrote was, how safe do you feel in your neighborhood? Which I really like that question a lot. But I think that if we're going to ask that question, we may want to put in the demographic questions, what neighborhood do you live in? Because, or unless we're going to be able to tell that from the survey.
That'll come back from the survey number.
Okay.
Your specific
Okay.
questionnaire will have an address associated to it, so we'll
Gotcha.
know from the database that you came from the West End or the East End.
Well, and we can
Perfect.
put that as a demographic question, what neighborhood do you live in, or,
Unless it specifies, unless we can identify if they feel safe in X neighborhood, where that neighborhood is.
Yeah, but I think that we need to understand what the metrics of that are. In other words, when I read that question and I check off one of those boxes, regardless of what neighborhood I live in, it doesn't, for me, I don't think it tells the government specifically what that concern is. So when I read that question, like for me, in my mind, I would structure it something to the degree of, are there any specific safety measures you would like to see implemented in your neighborhood, and why? Like, to me, that tells me, you may feel somewhat safe, but you're at least telling me why you only feel somewhat safe, and you who live in that neighborhood then get to tell, me, the government that's asking, what are the things I can do to make things better there? And I guess that's how I see, the questions happening is, and I realize it's gonna take more effort for the citizen to generate that response to any one of these questions, but I feel like,
Let me be
that we
clear
get
here.
that.
These questions, the mayor has come up with these questions based on another survey. We are waiting to hear from you and this elected body on questions you want answered. And then when those questions are drafted, it will go through Captain Alexander, who will vet those questions in a way to minimize them being weighted one way or the other. To go to your question about providing the examples and then weighing those, it's almost giving them an answer to answer. He's got a way of rewriting that question to take that part out as much as possible in a survey component. So this is more of a, we're here to assist with the survey in terms of the direction you guys want it to go, and then just try to weight those questions in a way that it doesn't try to influence the respondent to give an answer one way or the other. We want to try to weigh that out to as even as we can. So I'm hearing exactly what you're saying, Councilman, and I don't disagree with you at all. I do. But that's where this discussion here is going to help us. Once those questions come our way, then we can look at and say, here's how we think the questions should be asked based on how surveys are done from academics standpoint. It'll come back to you guys to obviously give the final say as to those questions and how they're asked.
And I probably should have been more clear. I just typed this as something like examples of like, here's some other community surveys, what they put. I didn't have any intention for everything on here to be what our survey was. I was just trying to provide examples of, different
Oh, yeah, I
topics.
agree. I mean, that's part of this deliberation that we're having, you know what I mean? Like, I feel like this is that step to get there.
Yeah.
And I also get the fact that we're sort of sitting here at our first meeting, you know what I mean? And I'm sure that we all sort of want to like get this out to the street, get to hear from people so we can get to work, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I get both of those sides of that coin. And I'm happy, to participate in the process of how we flesh out, what it looks like to get it out to the public so that we can get those answers back. So at the start of the new year, we can start to check off these boxes and get moving on them.
Go ahead, Keisha.
I think there should be something in this about, in reference to COVID in the pandemic, because people are, experiencing being shut in as we all are, and I think that a question around that, I don't know if it looks like what impact or how has it impacted, how can, government help, what services do you need, I don't know, but I think there definitely needs to be, and maybe top, because that's a lot of people's, biggest fear right now is what's happening in COVID and pandemic.
I'd also like to see one other question added regarding like family-friendly activities, whether they believe in our community. I mean, I think that there's plenty, but, does the community feel like there's family-friendly activities? Or maybe if we even talk to our, younger generation of, 21 to 20, I don't know how old you are when you go out anymore, but activities on that level, like a nightlife scene or something like that. So kind of maybe something along those lines. Definitely family friendly though.
All right. So we talked about, how do you want to receive updates? I think that one is important to see how you want to be communicated with, what services you'd like to see us implement, safety in our neighborhoods, our strengths, our areas of opportunity, COVID, and maybe what services you need or what impact it's had, family-friendly activities. What other kind of information would you like to generate?
For the third bullet point, if we're going to list examples of Hagerstown's biggest issue, if we could add homelessness.
Mm-hmm.
And we'll see this in its final state before it's issued,
absolutely.
right? Okay.
Yeah. And then on questions like that where we're providing examples, like I said, there'll always be an other option as well that you can write in.
That's a good idea.
And how about for what large-scale project, how about the question of, would you like to see a large-scale project, yes or no? And then there's a list of examples and then other. Because I heard what Kristen was saying about kind of giving people, felt like you were kind of giving people options that they had to choose from, but you don't want to make it too broad.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Okay.
Because some people are gonna wanna say like, no, you're spending all my money
Yeah,
already,
right,
you know,
yeah.
we don't need any more stuff,
Yeah.
you know, and we can be like, thank you.
Any other feedback?
This is a very great concept.
Yeah.
And I think, like we mentioned during the orientation, asking the community for the public feedback is gonna be really crucial with planning. And I think it's gonna be helpful to just engage and show who we are and that we are listening to what everyone has to say. I think it's a great way to start out.
Me too. All right, good?
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, thank you, guys. Hey, we're done. City administrator comments?
Almost done. You're as bad as the former mayor when it comes to that. Just a couple things, just to piggyback on Councilmember Burnett's last comment. This type of input and a strategic plan as a foundation is going to be very important in putting a budget together, especially in the age that we're in right now, which is going to be limited or less than limited resources as a way to prioritize where you as a mayor and council are going to want to see those resources placed. I think having this type of feedback is going to be extremely important in allowing us to make those decisions, because I have to present a budget to you, and without that strategic direction, it makes it very difficult for me to know my priorities may be different than yours. So having this information as we get into, before that budget is presented, gives us as staff, as we all work on our budgets, better indication of what you are looking to do. But I think this is long overdue to be able to provide this to the community. I think doing it in a way that eliminates as much as possible the trolling factor of social media and survey taking is an optimal thing. And I think between Captain Alexander, the chief, Paul Falk is going to help us, because if anybody is comfortable with surveys, it's PCAD and the generation of surveys and getting it out to the right people. So they're going to help us in that. So I think this is going to be a very worthwhile effort, and I think it sets us up for the future in being able to have an established foundation that we can move forward, not only in presenting budgets, but having metrics against the budget to see, are we meeting those directives and those goals and objectives that you all put forth. So I appreciate this effort. Just to, again, on what Michelle said, the city offices are closed to the public. They're going to be closed to the public for the foreseeable future, as we help try to mitigate any potential exposures we have to the virus in city buildings. It is certainly affected us more this go round than it did back in March and April. But I think with what staff has put in place, anticipating this back in March and April and May, we are at as good a place as we could expect to be with this quirky situation, and communication went out today that you all were a part of, that is looking to tie down a little bit more the requirements that we're asking staff to follow. Ultimately, with the hope that we never have to, but if we would have non-compliance, we would have recourse to that for staff. And I think you'll also see the county doing the same thing. I know the public safety, being that integration we have between county public safety and city public safety, I think you're going to see a similar type statement go out with them. So we're trying to do everything we can to mitigate any exposures for the safety of our staff and for the safety of their families and for the public. So take a look at that when you have an opportunity. Normally, we would be closed Thursday and Friday. If you have your trash collected on Thursday, it's going to be pushed back a day, so set that out on Friday. Friday we'll pick up Saturday, and then we get back to normal next week. And that's it for me. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Kristen?
Just one thing, well, two. If everyone has a safe and healthy Thanksgiving, but also wanted to say, in the midst of the stiffness of the transition from an old administration to a new, with the orientation, the pictures, and the swearing in, just want to say to the folks in the room, it was good to be able to sit this evening in the council office and actually literally just for a few minutes before the meeting get to know a little bit about the council members and share that we're simply just folks that live in the community, that have families, that deal with the same day-to-day life stuff that everyone else does, and it was reassuring just to have a conversation like that at the outset of this group.
When you put the PSA out about utility billing and things like that, I hope you get a better response than the PSA that I did the other day. So I don't know how you're supposed to word it where people understand that all we're trying to do is remind and help and try to how to, give you the opportunity to figure out a way. But hopefully you can word it where you don't get the kind of responses that I've received with it. So.
Yeah.
I just want to thank the staff, the city staff again for putting all this together and welcoming the new members. This has been a pretty fulfilling moment. Last night, I was in tears a little bit just from the excitement, and I'm thankful for the voters and the citizens of Hagerstown for putting this very diverse group up here. And I've been using the word excited for the last 3 weeks now. I still don't have another word for it, but I'm like Kristen said, we had a discussion earlier, and it was really reassuring to have that chit chat right before. I didn't know what to expect with today, so with having that conversation, just reassured that I'm glad I decided to run and be a part of this group. Thanks.
I'm just glad I remembered your name.
Oh yeah, I did tell Bruce you about yourself yesterday. You knew my name. I'm like, you knew my name, but it's all good.
So just happy holidays, everyone stay safe, and Hagerstown is good ground, and I thank the staff for the welcome and all my questions answered and helped out. So yeah, I'm just excited to move forward.
Congratulations, Madam Mayor. I know you're really excited to sit there. It's very exciting for all of us. I can't come up with another word either, Tiara. Exciting is all I have. I'm always super thankful for staff, and I hope all of you have a happy Thanksgiving, very safe. And this year is going to be different for all of us, and to keep our hospital workers and our medical professionals, definitely close to the heart, including the men and women of both our police force and our fire department that probably don't normally get to go home anyway, but so if you have a little bit of extra time to reach out and say thank you, I think that they would definitely appreciate it for all that all of them do for our community. So thank you and happy Thanksgiving to all of you.
Thank you. So I know that our administration is less than 24 hours old, but recently, since the election, a lot of the coverage that we have been getting has all been based around gender, and rightfully so. But I hope that moving forward, our administration and city government is known as inclusive. I just want everyone in Hagerstown to know, no matter what race you are, no matter what part of Hagerstown you live in, no matter how much money you have in your bank account, no matter what higher power you worship, who you love, how you identify, you're welcome here. And I'm excited that our council reflects the diversity in our community. And just knowing that you have a seat at this table, I am so incredibly honored to serve as mayor, and I'm ready to get to work. So I hope everyone has a safe and happy Thanksgiving, and here's to a kick butt next 4 years.
Yes.
All right. And with that, we're done.
That's how you end it. We're done.